A presidential campaign may be compromised by the Russians.
That looks a lot like collusion to me.
I do think there's evidence of collusion.
He was colluding with the leader of a hostile power deliberately.
There's plenty of evidence of collusion. We know that the Trump campaign wanted the Russians to give them help.
We already know that there was collusion.
This after guilty pleas about lying to the FBI agents and investigations into campaign finance. Where is the collusion, some may ask? Dan Bongino,
looking for it.
Former Secret Service agent, former NYPD officer, and host of the Dan Bongino Show, joins us, and author of the book, hit book, Spygate. So, Dan, Mueller's team on Friday released key documents relating to the FBI's question of Flynn. One of the exhibits, which we'll put on the screen, struck and redacted. We don't know who that is. Both had the impression at the time that Flynn was not lying or did not think he was lying. Flynn said struck as bright but not profoundly sophisticated. So they say he wasn't lying. They walked him in without lawyers. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, Pete, this is devastating. On the collusion front first, though, you ever see the movie Mean Girls where Gretchen tries to make fetch happen and Regina says fetch isn't going to happen? Collusion's not going to happen, guys. It's not. It's done. It's finished. There is no evidence of it. It's over. They've evolved from treason to collusion to obstruction to campaign finance reform. That's going to go nowhere, too. But on the Flynn case, what's profoundly disturbing about this, and just to be clear, what bothers me the most is the fact that the lawyer thing, that Andy McCabe, the #2 at the FBI, seemed to incentivize Flynn to speak without a lawyer. Now, to be clear on this, as a former federal agent, that's not illegal. There's no requirement that Mike Flynn have a lawyer present. But we know now that that was probably not SOP, standard operating procedure, for an interview of that kind of gravity. Why? Because Jim Comey admitted it himself on another network in an interview where he said what? I wouldn't have gotten away with it in another administration.
Yeah.
Gotten
Dan,
away with what?
Right. Dan, it seems crazy what James Comey said, as you point out. It seems like the behavior of Peter Strzok, Andrew McCabe, which we'd heard about before, is only getting worse with these court filings. And there's a real possibility in coming days that Judge Sullivan could just say, I'm throwing these charges out against General Flynn. But here's a bottom line question I have to take the other side for a moment. Why then, if this was all rigged against General Flynn and he really did nothing wrong, why didn't he tell the truth?
Ed, we don't know that. I understand people listening are going to say, but Dan, he took a plea. I'm hesitant to say it, but I have reasonably good sources on this. He took that plea for one reason and one reason only. He was bankrupted by the government. He was a 30-year military professional. He didn't work for Goldman Sachs. He was not a multi-billionaire. He was bankrupted. The Mueller probe basically used witch hunt-like tactics to threaten him and his family. It would have gotten worse. He had to take that plea. I am absolutely convinced, based on an exhaustive amount of research, that Mike Flynn didn't lie. That Mike Flynn genuinely did not recall the fact that he had discussed sanctions. Now, Ed, you may say, well, again, what makes you believe that? Mike Flynn admits in the FBI's own paperwork that he knew they had a transcript. He says to Andy McCabe in the conversation, well, you probably know what I said.
Right.
Why would he lie? That's an argument for his innocence, not his guilt.
Dan, I just have to ask you, because we're having a lot of conversations about money, and I tend to be a hawk when it comes to money. And this investigation now, this Mueller investigation, is costing $25.2 million for taxpayers. And I remember when it was Benghazi that was being investigated, when it was Hillary Clinton's emails, Democrats were always talking about what a big waste of money that was. So to what end is this now with this investigation? Because it seems like it's never going to stop until they find something, and they're not finding what they want.
Yeah, well, they're not investigating crimes in search of people. They're investigating people in search of crimes. Those people are Donald Trump and his team. And Jedediah, what's really disturbing about this is, by the way, the Mueller probe is the biggest ripoff in American history. We're all getting worked on this, huge, right? The difference with Benghazi and Hillary Clinton's email scandal is those actually happen. Like those things actually happened. People actually died in Benghazi for American patriots. Hillary really did have a private server to circumvent government privacy rules. But here's the deal with collusion. It never happened. There is no evidence, $25 million, and there's not a scintilla of evidence this collusion, a fairy tale, actually happened. It's a total ripoff. Biggest ripoff in American history.
No, it's a great point. Well, someone who's been on the other side of you on this issue from the beginning, Representative Representative Eric Swalwell. He may be a 2020 hopeful. We're not sure. He's been talking to the media, as he often does, saying that there's more evidence that Trump was associated with a criminal campaign. Listen to Swalwell.
The bigger picture here is that you are now seeing more evidence than ever that Donald Trump was associated with a criminal campaign, a criminal transition, and presides today very likely over a criminal presidency.
What's he setting the table for in the House?
Yeah, this is one of the slimiest members of the House. I'm serious. Swalwell, from the start, has been lying disingenuously about Donald Trump. First, Donald Trump colluded. Then he was associated with collusion. Then Donald Trump was a criminal. Then he was associated with criminals. Swalwell knows he's got nothing. He's a conspiracy theorist. He should not be discussed in polite company anymore, this guy.
All right.
Well, then
Dan
we'll stop
Bongino,
talking.
Thanks,
quoting
Dan.
Mean Girls earlier. Pete
Yeah.
was quoting Gossip Girl earlier. All kinds of stuff happening.
Dan, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Appreciate it.